Hey everyone, this is Dr. Baffa. Just thought I'd take you through some of the steps for editing the Loredana Toma World Record Snatch Training Session. So we're in Final Cut Pro right now. Got our clips here. It is a lot of clips. So right now, the unedited clips, if we were to just throw this all together, basically a bunch of lifts that Gregor filmed in Thailand at the World Championships. A morning session with some Korean stuff in here, DPRK lifters, but she did some pulls in the morning, some squats, and then in the afternoon was the world record snatch session and some clean and jerks as well. But I'm putting all these together, going to do a little training edit, and I've already copied them into Final Cut Pro. And now is the process of actually going through and trying to turn it into something manageable and watchable that doesn't have all the footage of like the camera pointing at the floor and whatnot. So the first thing, so this shot, for example, we probably don't need pink chairs, to be honest. They're great chairs, but we can probably cut that out. There's a little bit of stuff on the floor, but right about, well, it's a little shaky. There we go, though. Toma doing some push-ups or something. And right now, the point is not to make a refined edit. It's just to watch the footage, get a sense of what's good and usable, and what we can totally throw out. So I'm not even going to worry about the fact that the camera sort of shakes at the end there. We'll refine that later. That's a little shaky. Greg finding his rhythm. But about there, it starts to become usable. Again, I'm not going to worry about that. I'll cut that out later if we need to. All this might go in. At this point, I just want to take out the stuff that I know I'm not going to use. So like that, I'm not going to use that pull away. So we'll cut that out. This isn't the only way to edit a training haul video. And I'm sure, Greg might use different ways. I use different ways depending on the footage. But in this case, I just thought, let me just put everything in, go through it all, and refine it that way. And this is probably what I do, or I've done most of the time. Look at all the footage and then get a sense of what can be thrown out immediately and what can stay as I start refining the edit. The goal here is to create what some people would call an assembly cut. Basically, just everything that might make it in. Toma using the bar. And as we go along, if I see anything interesting from a technical standpoint, I can point it out. Note that we've got Nat Aram, Mr. Hook Grip in the background, also filming. Looks like he's going to pull away there. We'll get rid of that. We can get rid of some of that. And actually, all that's going to be a bit unusable. From about there, maybe we can use it. Nope, he zooms in again. Gregor, what are you doing to me? That guy looks good. Toma taking the bar. Getting warmed up. Somebody's butt. So here we are walking up to Toma. She's taking 45, and we figure we're probably not going to use that walk up. It's a little shaky, but, maybe from about there, it starts to get usable. Nice, easy muscle snatch for Toma. Like how straight the bar is, the bar path, rather. It's so close. So one of the nice things I can do here is, if I want, just really, you can go through basically a frame at a time. Greg was filming this in 120 frames per second. I'm editing in a 60p timeline right now, so I can get nice slow-mo. But look at how flat-footed she still is, and then comes up on the balls of the feet, not going on her toes, the balls of the feet, and at the very end, she comes up even off the balls of the feet. Interesting. Look at how close that bar is. So again, that's going to be cut, but we're not going to worry about refining too much now. So this is going to be cut because most of these clips are just Toma, but some of them have other athletes. As much as I want to watch Myung-chul, we don't need him in the Toma edit, so I'll go to where that ends. And actually, there's a kind of cool thing here. As coach, you'll see the DPRK coach kind of yells at him when to start. A little clap there, which seems to initiate it. We saw some of that in the championships, actually. That coach would yell, and the lifters sometimes would initiate their lift on the platform after he had yelled. All right, so that's done. And now we come back over to Toma. We'll cut right about there. Again, not worried about perfect cuts or transitions or anything like that. I just want to get rid of everything that I know is extraneous. Nice. Ooh, and a little muscle snatch at the end. Very nice. So we know that that's going to be unusable. So here's a case where, you know, we have some usable stuff in the beginning, but we're probably not going to use that. So from about here, I feel safe cutting. And it's not like it disappears forever. If at some point I decide, oh, wait, maybe I do want that movement coming into the pulls, I can always go back and add it. Look at how straight the pull is. Look at how close it is, too. Come forward a little bit. Very straight arm pull until the very end. Look at that. Bar is almost under the shirt. Again, here she's on the balls of the feet. Big extension at the end. That's probably not going to be usable. It's too fast, unfortunately. Again, we can probably get rid of a lot of this. Yeah. So this is it. This is the process. Just going through, taking out whatever looks like you might not need. And again, there's a lot of setup here, right? Like in the final video, I'd be very surprised if all of this setup were included. But right now, I'm going to leave it in because some of that might form part of a transition or something. And really, I just want to get rid of the stuff that I'm positive is not likely to be in the final edit. Very nice lift. Very nice pulls. So yeah, Myung-chul is not going to be in that Toma edit. Check it out. Greg doing some artistic shots. This is a nice one, actually. Watch this. Ooh, yeah. Trying to do a little rack focus with the A6400. Actually, this is an interesting scene. Here's where you're just stuck in the training hall. You got two potentially interesting things going on, and you got to choose between one or the other. You need a team of people to try to catch everything. It's just impossible. But it's a nice problem to have. So now we're getting into the afternoon session. Ooh, some forearm curls. This is where the actual snatch world record happens. So here's Toma with 107. Very nice lift. Putting on the collars for 110. And putting on the greens for 112. So here is the world record lift. Excuse me, here's 112. Nice. And now loading the world record lift. We can cut some of this. Maybe a little press set on that right arm. Very good lift. All right, so we've gone through and only took about 3 minutes or 4 minutes or so off the whole thing, but at the very least got rid of some of the really extraneous stuff. Now, got to go through and actually start really trimming and maybe see if we can cut this down to about half that length, give or take. Okay, so we've got just an assembly. It's like 27 minutes, probably too long for an ATG video. Also, there's still a lot of fluff in here. And now I'll start going through and being a little more aggressive with what I'm cutting. Not yet turning it into a completed ATG training video. Adding the special sauce that makes it an ATG video, which is mostly just beat drops and pumping the saturation. But there's all sorts of stuff that we can probably remove. So let's go through and do that now. At this point, I don't know how long the video is going to be. My goal is just to include all the relevant lifts. And maybe at some point we'll decide, let's make this 2 training videos. Or maybe we don't need the pulls from the morning. Maybe we don't need the squats. But I want to get every lift here, every lift that's relevant at least, and get it into a more manageable shape, maybe with some neater transitions or tighter transitions and edits. So now the real work begins. The earlier stuff is pretty easy. It's mindless, copying the files in and whatnot, and then going through making the assembly. This actually requires a little bit of finesse. So do we want Toma push-ups, for example? Hell yes. Do we want her stretching? Probably don't need all that stretching. I'll also start taking out some more of the excess. So when Greg is putting the camera away and the fact that it's shaking and whatnot, I'll start trimming a little more of that. Oh, Myung Chol, get out of the way. Greg, stay focused. It's interesting. It is seeing someone's butt moving in front of the camera. Get rid of it. So here's a good example of somebody, Toma, doing a really nice pull, keeping the shoulders over the bar almost until the very end. I mean, she finishes, Creative Cloud, she finishes and the shoulders are still in line with the bar, almost over the bar, doesn't get behind it. Pretty classic technique. The last one she does, big finish, gets the shoulders back, and there's that extension. So here's an example of a shot, or a clip rather, that I think I'm going to have to take out. This is the full clip. So Greg, obviously, I mean, you're caught unawares. Toma has gone up. She's on a set of pulls. She was doing 115. Now she's got 120 on the bar there. And the issue is, the shot just doesn't look long enough. Oops. And we don't really, it's not worth holding on to it. So we'll just get rid of that. So I'm going through the edit, and here's a good example of how it's great to be a shooter, meaning somebody who's filming, who's also an editor. So Greg here, I'm watching, and for a second I was like, Greg, what are you doing? Why are you pointing the camera at the floor? Tom was looking at you. She's saying something secret. But no, he is making a little possible intro. Right? Now, I don't know that that one's going to work, but he's filming with an eye toward the edit. Like, what are we going to, if we were making a video and we want a reveal shot or something, he had one earlier, the barbell one from a while back, this right here, right? That's a nice reveal shot. So he's thinking like an editor as he's shooting. And the same thing going on here. Again, I'm not sure this is going to work, but it might, right? Any event right now, that's not what I'm worried about. I'm going to keep it in there. I suppose I could move it to the beginning, but again, not making an intro right now. Same thing here, 2019 World Championships if we need an intro shot. And so these are a couple options here for how we might make the kind of opening clips for the training hall video. We can trim some of that at the very end. So here comes Coach with a plate for Toma, because apparently they misjudged how tall the squat rack had to be. Let's trim some of that, but actually like some of it. It's a nice little detail from the training hall. That's a little shaky. We'll just sort of clean around it once it gets shaky. So there it gets shaky. Cut there. And Greg's getting stable right there. Nice. Okay, so we've got about a 16-minute cut right now, and that's starting to look better. It's getting down to a manageable size, but remember, there's still no slow motion, no replays or anything, and there's still some material we can remove. But what I'm going to do now is I've got my assembly here. This is just all the lifts, basically, and I'm going to duplicate it because this way, if I want to revert back or find a lift quickly or something, I have the original with the full thing. So I'll then go to it, gives it an automatic name, assembly 1. I'm going to rename this just rough for the time being. And in Toma World Record rough, I can start refining the edit a little more. As much as I love these push-ups, I don't know. Is it a little too shaky? So it starts out, it's okay. Then it gets a little shaky with the zoom. Then it's okay. And I mean, a lot of this probably won't stay in. Some of it might though. Then it zooms out. We'll go back. Before the zoom out, we'll cut there. Okay, so we can keep refining. Not perfect, but it's a little trimmed up. Might be part of an intro or something. So now I'm just going to keep removing more and more material. Like that. Gets a little long. And here. So the camera is moving quite a bit in the initial part. I don't know that we need all that. It might just be better. And we don't know if this is going to be the final edit, but getting rid of some of that excessive camera motion, I think works there. We don't lose anything super valuable. Like just because we don't see Toma putting that barbell overhead, most people can assume the barbell got there not from falling out of the ceiling, but via her putting it there. So as much as I like Young Chol really quickly loading a barbell, well, maybe we'll keep it in for the time being. It gives a nice sense of the training hall. Nice muscle snatch. Eventually later we might go back in and maybe speed up some of the setup and whatnot. And here's where we can start to do a little more trimming. So setup is great, but it can slow down the flow of an edit. So just making those little trims there can make a big difference. And so like here, right, we're gonna get a lot of setup. It's nice to get a little bit of kind of her getting the straps ready and whatnot, but we probably don't need more than a few seconds. And if we get it for one attempt, I usually feel like I can trim it even more for subsequent attempts. I'm actually gonna trim that there too. So here's an example, right? We just had her setting up like that. We don't need to see it again. It's great, it's fascinating stuff, but the pulls are the real meat here. Same thing. Get rid of some of that. Cut a little more. Same thing, there's a lot of setup. I mean, this is a bigger lift, so maybe it's more interesting, but it's just pulls. I think I'll be forgiven for cutting that. Good. I'll also trim the ends a bit. Later I'll go in and fix the audio transitions. But for right now, just basic cutting. Trim that end. We just need enough to tell the story, essentially. Like, we don't need to watch, for example, the entire sequence of how they figure out the height, but that, you know, I want to give the viewer a sense of like, okay, they're figuring out her shoulder height here. She's carrying a bar across. She's squatting on the men's bar for whatever reason. So this might work as like a little intro. I'm actually just sort of curious. Let's cut this, go to the beginning, put it there, and we'll cut when it starts moving. And we'll actually cut there. And then he's hunting. I'm actually not sure if he's using autofocus here or not. That doesn't quite work. But this is what editing is. Testing out options, seeing what might work. Actually, let's just get rid of that transition. I'm not sure that's going to work. but I'll keep playing with it. Maybe I'll leave it. And otherwise, no. Because I certainly don't need it where it was. But I could always put it back, right? I'm just going to keep going through. And trimming. I mean, this is another area where we want to get her walking. But do we need to know she walked the entire way and all that? I mean, we can make these sorts of educated guesses as a viewer. Maybe add a little transition there. Let's redo that. And maybe not perfect, but it works for the time being. I like that Loredana shirt. I gotta get that. Ooh, here's a message from Greg. And you know, that might also work at the beginning, part of an intro. I'm just going to put it there for now because I don't need it where it was. And I want to focus on just the lifting edit, essentially. So I could use a little work as well. Maybe a little better. So yeah, just gonna go through and see what I can take out, basically. Okay, getting back to the edit, and we're about 15 minutes or so. Just had an extended iMessage conversation with Gregor Winter, who wants me. So right now it's 15 minutes. We have a morning session, some pulls and squats. You've seen this. Then, of course, a world record session, and just a little bit of clean and jerking, right? Gregor wants me to put the pulls and squats after the world record session, which I can understand because it's like, oh, people come to watch the world record, not pulls and squats. Fair enough. But that drives me nuts from a continuity standpoint or a time standpoint because this is the morning session. And I wouldn't want people to watch and think, oh, she did a world record, then clean and jerk, then pulls, then squats. So, and we can put it in the description like this was actually done after, but nobody reads descriptions. So, I mean, it's not that big a deal, but got to figure out now how to actually turn this into a video that will pass Gregor Winter's standards. So I'm going to see what it looks like with just the world record stuff. Now, again, I think I mentioned earlier, the world record stuff alone is not super long because Lasha Talahadze, in case you forgot, was also in the training hall. Greg was, filming some of his stuff. So we go from 45 kilos with Toma to 95 kilos. I'm assuming she didn't take those jumps. This means the video might be a little short if I don't include the pulls. Maybe only like 7 minutes, but if I can flesh it out, maybe it works on its own, and then maybe we just turn the whole video into a Patreon exclusive so you guys can see here's the morning session and then what she does and comes back. And if you want to skip to the world record stuff, you don't want to watch pulls, that's fine. I think the pulls are kind of fascinating. If you're a Patreon viewer, you're probably a little more refined of a weightlifting fan, and you also maybe want to see, like, that's an interesting pull. So I'm going to get to work on this and a couple of versions. What I'll probably do is duplicate the timeline again. So if I make any major changes, which I'm going to remove all the beginning stuff and see if it stands alone, just a world record session. I can always go back to an earlier version. So let's see what that looks like. Toma Training Hall Rough. And we'll duplicate the project. And Toma World Record Training. And we'll say World Record Short Cut. And now start getting rid of stuff that's not the world record, basically. So right now, I mean, there's still a lot of extraneous material, but right now, the just the world record stuff with a couple of slow motions, and I can add some more slow motions, comes out to a little over 7 minutes. That's actually not bad as a YouTube video goes. So maybe this will work just as world record plus the clean and jerks afterwards. I'm going to start playing around with it to see if that's the case. And what I want to do, what I think I want to do, right now I have that slow-mo. So she goes up to 112. And is this 112? Yeah, that's 112. And then after that is when we get the world record. And I think I want to move that 112 to later. Like, I don't think I want to break up the flow of the snatch progression. And maybe I'll go back and decide, actually, no, it's okay. We'll introduce the slow motion 112 before the world record. But I do kind of like, we just get 112. She nails it. And then we go right into loading the bar, 116, and then the 116 attempt. And so if we do this, then we'd get the slow motion of the 116. I'm actually going to get rid of this 116 slow motion because I'm going to redo them. And what I want to do is, oops, copy. Why isn't this? There we go. Copy that. Paste that. And then I also want the 112. Paste that after, because I want to do a little side by side. I think a little side by side of the 112 and the 116 will work. But to get these side by sides, I want to make sure I'm timing them as closely as possible. So what I will usually do is look for the moment of separation, basically. And that's tough because this is, again, shot at 120 frames per second. So, like, is that the moment of separation? But I'll try to find whatever is sort of equal, I think right there. And I'll mark that. And then I'll mark roughly where we get a catch too. The catch, less important to me. On the 112, I'm going to try to find the same thing. I think that's pretty similar. So I will mark that. And that. This is going to be my in. This is going to be my out range for the slow motion. We're going to go to 10% right now. Turn off preserve pitch. I'll shorten this up a little bit. All right. And again, I am going to slow this down a little more. Actually, this is an easier way to slow this down. Just sort of drag it out. Let's just change it to 6%. I often find 6 is a nice compromise. Good. Feather a little more. All right. Let's do the same over here. In, out, custom, 6%, preserve pitch. Get rid of some of this. All right, and what we want to do, so what I'm thinking is, we start with just a slow-mo 116, and then we go to some repeats of things. And maybe these will actually, I don't know where they'll end up, but I know I want some comparisons. And actually, the first thing I'm going to do is retime and go to normal. I want to do a comparison in full speed. And the way I'll line these up to try to make them as relevant as possible in a comparison is I will try to line up basically where I indicated the moment of separation from the floor, which that marker right there, that's as close as I'm going to get, I think. And then I will move things around so that we can get a nice side by side. This is the lighter weight, so I obviously want this over. Oop, I have the wrong thing selected. And I'm not going to worry about feathering that just yet. A hard line is okay. There's that. Also, I'm realizing, so Greg was moving around. When you're doing comp videos like this, it's a little bit easier because the camera's in one place. You don't have to really resize things. Here, I'm noticing I probably need to do a little resizing, if I'm honest. And they're never going to be perfect, I don't, because, the angles change a little bit, but I can at least get them a little bit closer. So we need that to be the one below a little bit bigger. And I'm doing my best to, that's pretty good, to be honest. Oop, stop. That might be about, I think we can go at just oops, okay. We're back after Final Cut crash briefly. And I think this one can be just a tiny bit bigger. 103. I think that's pretty good. All right. Bring the opacity back. Bring this back over here. And we're going to crop the right side a little bit. Just looking for a pretty rough approximation. We're actually going to move this up a tiny bit so they're more in line. Nice little side by side. You can shorten that a touch. And now that we have that, beach ball of death. Okay, everything is all right. We'll paste that and start doing our slow-mo comparison. Oh man, ignore. Slow, custom, 6%. Gotta turn off pitch correction. Do the same for the top one. Custom, 6%. I wish you could just default to not correcting the pitch. And now we get a nice little side by side. All right. Oop, I'm just realizing. Look at that. Gotta fix that. Gotta move that one up a little bit clearly. That just needs to be 0. Which means that's also an issue over here. 0. We can check this out side by side. Unsurprisingly, these two lifts look really similar side by side. Pull is the same. I mean, top athletes, whatever their quirks and peculiarities may be, they do them every single time. So, not a bad little side by side. And we actually don't need that, I don't think. And now we have this. So let's see how long it is now. So 7 minutes, 20 seconds. Not bad for a YouTube video. Although there's still stuff that can be trimmed. And so what I will do now, maybe I'll turn on optical flow at this point, just so I get a sense of what it will actually look like. And I'm going to go through and start refining this edit. I think it's probably fair at this point to do some J and L cuts. So what the hell is a J and L cut? If we watch that, and this is, I don't know if this is going to make it in because this is morning session stuff, but I like that shirt, so maybe it will make it in just in like the intro. But basically, we have, if you're watching a video and you do a cut like that, we are really used to seeing cuts. We will believe a cut. But audio that cuts throws us off. So a J cut is that, basically. And I'll fade it in, fade it out. So J looks like kind of like a J, right? And it means that before the actual visuals cut, we get a little of the audio. And it helps ease the transition. L cut, same thing, but it's the other way, shaped like an L. So pull that side out, and a little bit of audio fading goes a long way toward smoothing out the cuts. I mean, right now my computer, and that's actually just a little shaky, so I'm also gonna still a tiny bit shaky. Greg was shooting on the Sony a6400, which does not have in-camera stabilization, if I recall correctly, and so he was working on a stabilized lens. There we go, that's better. But that means generally a stabilized lens is not going to be as smooth as in-body stabilization. Although in-body stabilization comes with its own issues. Sometimes you get weird, sort of wonky warping around the edges. But now just comes a tedium of going through and doing a bunch of J and L cuts, which you don't need to watch, or at least not in real time. So I'm going to go do that and then see how things look and maybe send it off to the boss for review. So I'm going to show you where every so often I feel like I add material. Usually it's about trimming, and this little section right here. This is just a little nice little sequence of unloading, loading a bar. I'm not a professional editor, but I try to pay attention to the rhythms of things. And as I was cutting, I kept cutting and cutting and cutting. And I think it works, and maybe I'll refine this more. But I did feel like we have a series of quick cuts, cut to the lift. And I felt like, you know what, maybe that last part could be a little bit longer. So I actually lengthened it, extended it, and I feel like now that segment works a little better. It gives us just a little pause, and I might even add like another frame or two. I mean, it's so small, but cut. Just to give us a chance to sort of breathe before the lift. I'm gonna go just a little bit longer even. Add a few more frames, make that L cut, and then you just watch it. I think that works. I would even hold it maybe a tiny bit longer. I'm not sure Greg would allow that, but just to give us a chance to breathe. It's like change plate, and then there's that moment of like, all right, now we're getting the bar set. Toma's getting ready to take her 65. Back to more J&L cuts. All right, added a bunch of J&L cuts. Also did a clean and jerk slow motion, which added some time. Clean and jerk slow motions take forever to play out, that is. So this one I only slowed down to 8%, which maybe I'll play with, but for now it looks good. One thing I want to note is in the jerk, not everyone does this, but ideally in the jerk, nice straight dip, of course, watch the feet. Back foot, then front foot. And actually, I just noticed this, but her front foot, look at that. This is really weird. It stays, and then she kind of steps through. I don't know that I've ever noticed this about Toma. Let's see if she does it in this jerk. I don't have a slow-mo, but we can go step by step through it. Yeah. Wow. Still learning things. This is why I can be so useful. Editing video is like an amazing way to learn about technique. Look at that. She dip, drive, and watch that front foot. It stays planted, and then she steps through. I am shocked. Absolutely shocked. Right now the video comes in just a shade under 8 minutes. Again, there's some extraneous stuff, so it's probably about 7.5 or so once this beginning stuff, which maybe we'll go in, maybe we'll take out, will probably just be edited quickly. But 7.5 minutes isn't bad for a YouTube video. I'm actually going to pull this stuff now, I think, just because it's not super necessary. And this will give us a better idea of timing. Yeah, a little under 7.5 minutes. Not bad. All right, a little more. Did I forget to do a J&L cut here? I did. Get that. Drag that. All right. Take a little break. Maybe send this off to Greg at some point, and then start. I mean, the edit probably needs a little more work. Just keep refining. Then you got to do things like, assuming this is all good, put some labels on. What are the weights and whatnot? Those sorts of things. But actually, I think right now, I think I'm going to export and just. No, I'll wait. All right. So, what I'm now going to do is start adding some titles. I just copied and pasted a title from a different project. It's easier that way. And then I'll just copy, or rather just insert the appropriate weight. 45 kilos. 99 pounds. Probably not necessary to tag the bar. Maybe, I wonder if I should do the plate for the trisix. We'll see. I'll leave it as is for now. But basically, I just want a title every time she's touching the bar. And actually, I want to subtitle that too. I want the coach. We'll see. I'm going to start with just the titles. And I'll come back and think about adding subtitles to where the coach says, only 45 kilos, she's stopping there today. So here's a little example of where you really need to be careful with the standard fonts. So that looks okay. The spacing between letters. Look at this 1 and this 8. This is just horrible. Certainly not going to pass muster for an ATG video. Gregor right now, if I were to leave this in, Gregor would probably feel a disturbance in the force. So we got to fix the kerning, move it. There we go. You sort of play around with it. I'm not a professional typographer, but much, much nicer. Much more satisfying. Okay, got labels on things. Now I'm going to fix, or try to fix this. Not fix, but make this division a little more attractive. So we'll go over to our effects. We'll go to masks. Put the mask there. Looks all right. Good. Copy that mask. Paste it over here. We don't need to paste that. We will paste the crop. We need to paste. And let's see how that looks. I think that works. Got an edit. It's about 7.5 minutes still, a little bit less. And I think at this point, time to get a little feedback maybe. Yeah, all right. Let's do a little render and see how it goes.